welcome back to a Reboot Halloween. Last time we took a look at Disney's abomination known as zombies. But for this case, we are talking about the 2018 film starring a very popular Spider-Man villain, Venom. Now, the production of a Venom movie started all the way back in 1987 at New Line Cinemas. The movie would have been directed by David S. Goyer, who wrote such films as the original Dark Knight trilogy, and Blade 2, but also was responsible for movies like Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Terminator Dark Fate. Not that great of a resume. Besides BVS and Dark Fate, not that bad of a resume for directing a Venom movie. The movie would have also starred Dolph Lundgren as the main character of the movie, Eddie Brock / Venom. Yeah, imagine Dolph Lundgren playing Venom. Anyways, the project was canned once Sony got the rights to the Venom franchise. Once Sony got the rights to SpiderMan and from Marvel all in the 2000s and created their own trilogy with Tobey Maguire. Which in the third movie they did actually feature Eddie Brock, aka Venom. In that movie, and
Eddie! Ooh, my spider sense is tingling. If you know what I'm talking.
Let's never mention that ever again.
Agreed. But in 2015, after Spider-Man 3, a total of 7 years after Spider-Man 3 was released in 2007, and the franchise, Venom would see his own movie move into production, and later, with the help of Tom Hardy as the main star as Venom and Ruben Fleischer as the director, who directed such films as Zombieland, who previously was the director of the movie Zombieland, and would later go on to direct the sequel, Zombieland 2. And on October 5th, 2018, the Venom movie would come out in theaters. And even though not being that much of a critical success, the movie did amazing at the box office with over $800 million, where Venom gathered over $800 million worldwide on only a budget of $100 million. Which, love the movie or hate it, it was still a success. So, without further ado, let's get into my review of 2018's Venom. Our movie starts off with a crash site with a ship crashing on Earth and releasing the symbiote, which ends up going from this nurse to all around the place to pretty much everywhere till it attaches to, well, you know who later on. Anyways, after that scene, the movie cuts to our life of our main character, Eddie Brock, and with his girlfriend Annie, played by Michelle Williams, and their cat. Eddie gets the chance to have an interview with his guy from with Carlton Drake of the Life Foundation, but he ends up screwing it up. But Eddie ends up screwing it up, and he gets fired from his job as a reporter. And Anne even breaks up with Eddie. But after he sneaks into the lab of Carlton Drake with the help of his assistant, played by Jenny Slate. Eddie gets the Venom symbiote attached to him. And the movie, and throughout the movie, Carlton Drake is trying to track down the Venom symbiote. And even gets his own symbiote inside of him called Riot. And the movie ends off. And the movie later goes into having some different stuff with Venom and Eddie. He bonding. But then at the end of the movie, but then near the end of the movie, during the climax, they end up having to stop Drake from launching a rocket back to Venom's home, or they have to stop Riot from launching a rocket back to Venom's home planet. And they kill off Carlton Drake and Riot by blowing up the rocket. And my overall, and that's pretty much the synopsis from that. That's pretty much how most of the movie goes, but overall, Venom is a decent... It's a good movie. I like Venom. First, starting off with the main thing about the movie, Tom Hardy does a great job as both Venom and as both Eddie Brock and as the voice of Venom. He brings a clever little... He does a pretty good job with the character, and I like how the movie he deals with Eddie Brock's character. Also, for the other actors, Michelle Williams does a pretty good job as Anne. The actor who played her boyfriend Dan was alright. But to be fair, he is in a lot... He isn't in that much of the movie. Same thing goes for Jenny Slate as Drake's assistant. And who I don't even think... who I'm pretty sure after she even meets Eddie, she doesn't really appear anywhere again in the movie. As for the villain of the movie, I mean, the actor who played him in the movie did a fine job, but Riot's just a typical bad guy who is pretty much just your bland villain that is pretty much just as the opposite of the main character, who pretty much is the opposite of the main character. Kind of like with how Ant-Man and Yellow Jacket was, and all those other villains. It's kind of just your usual whole bland and bad guy who... And the movie and and even though I really enjoy this movie, I'd I'd be lying if I said the climax of the movie was that good. Was really that good that not that was really good, because the climax of the movie is just a mishmash of all of it's just a clobbered up mess in the climax. Accent, which is a problem that I have with another movie, Aquaman, but at least with this movie's climax, I could focus on something. But at least with Venom's climax, I could focus on something and not focus on 20,000 different fish people all swimming through the air and swimming through freaking in the sea while all giant crab monster attacks and all these freaking whales show up for some reason and all these people get eaten. That movie's climax is just awful. Anyways, as going back to the good, the design of Venom is really good as well. The visual effects team behind the movie did a very good job. And I'll admit, the jokes are pretty good. And sure, this movie doesn't feature Spider-Man, which for some people may be a turning off point from watching this, because there are some people out there that do believe that a Venom movie cannot work without Spider-Man in it. But to be honest, I think it works perfectly fine. I think the whole thing with Spider-Man not being in the movie does work fine. I mean, for what the movie is. Like, they aren't really trying to imply that this isn't that this is a part of any Spider-Man movie. They're not trying to imply that. It's just a fun little solo movie. It's a fun little solo movie. And I would say that as for other elements of the film, the music by Ludwig Göransson is really good. He did the soundtrack to movies like Black Panther, and Ludwig Göransson does a very good job. And even I'd say, hey, that at the crew behind the movie, and I'd even say that and I'd even say that they have a cool little tease at the end of the movie for Carnage being in the movie. At the end credit scene. By the way, if you see Venom Let There Be Carnage, stay till the after credit scene. You will be so thankful you did. Unless you saw it leaked on the internet. Which I'm not going to say anything about it, because my review for that movie won't be until the end of the month. And even in that review, I don't even think I'll get into that. I don't even think I'm going to get into that spoiler detail. But anyways, Venom is a fun film and I feel like it's a very overhated movie. And it doesn't, for what it is, it's a fun action movie with some pretty good visuals. Good jokes, good acting. And even though the climax of the movie is kind of a mess, and I wouldn't say the villain is the best of the, and I definitely consider other villains from the, and I definitely consider other villains as a better, that did a better job being the villain than Riot. It, like Mysterio and even Carnage in the second movie, and heck, I'd even say that the Lizard from The Amazing Spider-Man was a better villain. But yeah, anyways, my overall rating for Venom 2018 would be an 8 out of 10. It's a fun movie. It's a fun little solo movie. I feel like it does make it pretty. That is definitely a big step up from the last Venom movie we saw. From the last Venom thing. From the last Venom that we got introduced to. Still will not forget about Topher Grace. Oh boy. Anyways, that will do it for this week's episode out of A Raboot Halloween. And as for next week...